I needed that. May only your words be spoken, Lord, and only your words be heard. Please sit down. After yesterday, I really thought I was going to have to rewrite this sermon. The bishop covered some of the ground that I wanted to cover. But since not all of you were here, I figured I'd just carry on. Last week, if you'll recall, our reading from Matthew's Gospel was in chapter 24. It was kind of like one of those flash forwards you see in TV shows sometimes these days. It showed us part of the climax of the story of the life of Jesus. Today's Gospel is from chapter 3, and it might as well have a subtitle saying, 3 years earlier. John the Baptist has arrived, and he is the voice crying out in the wilderness, repent, go a different way, get ready. And all sorts of people are meeting him at the banks of the Jordan and changing their lives. People who have been cast out and poor, and those who are part of the in crowd and rich. He's telling them to change their minds and change their hearts because the Messiah is coming, bringing with him hope and healing. You must get ready. John is sometimes called the last of the great prophets. I would actually make a case that he might actually be the first deacon. By now, you may have a fairly good idea of who and what deacons are. They are servants of the church. But it's more than just that. Deacon comes from diakonia, the Greek word for messenger. And like a deacon, John carries the message, but he is not the message. He is not the light. He points the way to the light. He is a messenger for God. He is on the scene to prepare everyone for the one who comes after him. John is saying, you must get ready. John's call from God is to shake things up, comfort the afflicted, and afflict the comfortable. He brings baptism and new life to those gathered at the Jordan, a life that has been burdened by the cruelty and inhumanity of the first century occupation of the Roman Empire. And he is calling out the temple leaders who have perpetuated the injustice on others by collaborating and pacifying that same occupation government. He is calling everyone to shed their self-importance and their fear, to make things right. He's calling them back into covenant relationship with God. This is all part of the call of deacons. We are meant to be messengers, to point the way to God's dream of heaven on earth. We attempt to do so in a spirit of understanding and peace and faithfulness, and to welcome all as Christ has welcomed all. And we are to use our voices to call out injustice in the world. But first, we too must shed old ways of being to be the good fruit that God intended for us all along. We must be made ready. And yesterday was the climax of that preparation. Now, preparation is not a cakewalk. You hear a whisper of a suggestion, and you pray about it, and you share it with one person, and then you share it with a bunch of other people. And some of them know you well, and some of them don't know you at all. And after they question you 15 ways to Sunday, if they hear the whisper too, they send you to school. And you're in a classroom filled with PhDs and master's level engineers, and you haven't even finished college. And then they send you to another church for your field assignment. Talk about being in the wilderness. The first few months were awful. I was so scared of getting it wrong. I would say yes to everything, and I mean everything. I exhausted myself trying to make sure that everyone else was hearing the same whisper I was. I would drive home thinking, really, Lord? Really? It's this hard? But I soon realized that in order to cooperate with God's plan, I had to make some changes. I had to take off my people-pleasing, make-it-everything-perfect persona. I called it finding my feet. Because when I was honest with myself about what I could and couldn't do, when I owned it, I found my feet. And people responded. And I knew in my heart where I stood in this new place. And then I began to grow. At school, at work, even at home. And I wasn't so scared of making a mistake or messing up. And with that freedom from judging myself, I could then share that with others. And then I could be in an authentic relationship with God. Brené Brown, in her book, Braving the Wilderness, has a phrase for this. Strong back, soft heart, soft front, wild heart. It means owning who you are, the good and the bad, knowing that others struggle with the same kinds of issues you do, and loving each other anyways. I think it's a good quality in a deacon, don't you? You will not see me absolve, bless, or consecrate anything. Those are sacraments, and that's the job of the priests, the call of the priests. I am here to proclaim the gospel message. Occasionally, preach it from the lectern. Pray it with you in our prayers. And then dismiss us all to live it out in the world. Because I do not give up my day job, because I'm always out in the world, I can help us find new ways to bring the gospel message of love and mercy and justice to those who have been left out and left behind. When we listen to the voice crying out in the wilderness, God can do the impossible. No matter how set in our ways, no matter how hard we hang on to things that feel secure and comfortable, if we let Him, God will make something new of us. First it's a whisper, and then it gets louder and louder until the obstacles in our way are removed. And then what God is calling us to be happens in our hearts, in our lives, and in our communities. So that the peaceable kingdom that Isaiah foretold is right here and soon to come. The good news is that John knows we can answer his challenge to change our ways. We all have the capacity to be good fruit. And he lets us know that we don't do it alone. God's Spirit is the wind at our backs and the fire in our belly to fuel that change. A word of caution. For me, for you, and the world, this change is not something that will happen all at once or once and for all. Just because we get washed in the waters of baptism or have the bishop lay hands on us doesn't mean we're complete. We are still human after all. We will not get this right all the time. But John's message is that change is possible. We are all called to let go of our husks, our chaff of anxiety, self-absorption, and apathy. Then with our good fruit of peace and humility and love, we go where God is calling us, even when we don't think we're ready, because God has made us ready. Advent is a season of already and not yet. We already know what happens at Easter. The Advent season means to begin again, to make things new. Now, speaking of getting ready, I have no words. Thank you, all of you, for yesterday. So many of you worked so hard to make it special, not only for me and my family, but for all of us, for all our guests. Thank you for being with me throughout this journey. No words. I have no words to express all the gratitude and love for all the support you've given me along the way. So I'm going to crib shamelessly from Fred Rogers on the event of his Lifetime Emmy Award. He said, "Thank you for loving me into being. You have helped me become what I always was. Without your support, I could not have listened to the voice crying in the wilderness. And I look forward to our journey into ministry so that all can know the loving embrace of Christ as it is lived at St. Margaret of Scotland."